So, welcome to the San Mateo County Dental Society's webinar. Thank you for coming in this afternoon. Very pleased to have two excellent speakers returning this afternoon. All participants will be placed on mute. Our presenters will provide information about how to use remote dental professionals. During the presentation, you may post a question into the chat, and if we have time at the end, we will answer your questions. So now we'll introduce our speakers. We have Dr. Joshua Solomon. He's a second generation pediatric dentist and has been in practice in Livermore for over 20 years. He's a diplomat of the American Board of Pediatric Dentistry and owns Pediatric Dentistry and Orthodontics of Livermore. When not treating patients in his office, Dr. Josh is an internationally recognized speaker and clinical instructor. He serves as faculty at the BioClear Learning Center in Tacoma, Washington. Dr. Solomon is the director of the California BioClear Pediatric Learning Center. The center was designed to provide small group hands-on courses in advanced restorative techniques for pediatric and general dentists. He's a key opinion leader for many national and international dental companies. He serves as a new product advisor in emerging procedures and tech in dentistry. And also we have Christine Sison, BAMS. She's the CEO of Swiss Monkey, a staffing and virtual front office services company. She's built and has managed a dental practice for over 10 years, and she has her Bachelor of Neurobiology from UC Berkeley and a Master of Health Policy and Management from the Harvard School of Public Health. And Christine's been a longtime partner and supporter of the San Mateo County Dental Society. So welcome both. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks, everyone. I know we have a short hour here, and Josh, that was the condensed version of
And
your.
that's one. Yeah,
The
we
only
only have
reason
an hour,
why I
so we
let
got to
you
go
go
fast.
first. So otherwise, I think next time I'll still go first. So next time,
Okay.
yes, that was the shortened version, guys. Thank you. I know this is a quick lunch, and so we're gonna go straight into the meat and potatoes here. So I asked Josh to take time from seeing his patients and doing all of his lectures to come share an experience he had, which I think is one of the most traumatic experiences for any dentist to go through during a time that won't be mentioned. But during his kind of live case study, we'll walk through how he came about using remote work, his experience, and some of his takeaways. And that will really be the first half of the meeting. And then the second half will go through the kind of the mechanics and logistics of how that might play out in all of your practices. So without further ado, Josh, take it away.
Thank you. Now, Christine, you can still see my video. I only see you here, but I think we're good. You can see me in slides. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. I do a lot of webinars and lecturing, and it's not always for my local dental community. So it always is wonderful they get invited to do things. And I like to see Jim. We've worked together many times over the years, and I appreciate his dedication to everything that he does because I tell you, not all dental societies are as organized and do everything as well as Jim does for us. So I appreciate that. So just quickly about me, I'm a second generation pediatric dentist. I'm a Nepo baby. I took over the practice from my father, so my heart always goes out to those that have started practices from scratch. I was able to really build a practice quite a bit. So I'm in my third location now, and I'm not gonna move again. And so I just moved into the new facility about 2.5 years ago. And within the office, I wanted to build my own training center. I was lecturing and flying all over the place, teaching hands-on direct composites for general dentists and prosthodontists and pediatric dentists. And I decided I really wanted to do something in-house. So I built my new office. So any of you that are local, please come visit. So we have a full training center here. If anyone wants to ever host CE, I always make it available. We charge like basically nothing for my fellow dentists that are around. So if you want to ever do hands-on CE, please let me know. My practice is really focused on preventative dentistry in pediatrics, and I do a lot of ortho, pre-ortho and post-ortho aesthetic interior dentistry as well. My email address is right there, joshua@pediatricdds.com. I'm never giving that one up. I snagged Pediatric DDS 20 plus years ago. And then for those pediatric dentists that are on board here today, if there's any, my website is pediatricdds.com if you ever want to take a hands-on course for me. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. We can go to the next slide there, Christine. I'll just show you a couple pictures of my facility. Oh no, we took those out. Oh, there you go. So there's my just photos of my new office, and so we're in about 6,000 square feet. I have 13 ops, and I wanted everything to really be light and bright and welcoming for patients of all ages. We go to the next one. Thank you. And then when this is one thing I wanted to make available, I try to get this out to everybody. So for those of you that see children in your office, or if there's any pediatric dentists on, that is a link to all the handouts in my practice. So I try to, any of my colleagues that call and have questions about pediatric dentistry or direct composites, especially class twos, it's a main thing that I teach. But if you have questions, anything pediatric dentistry related, I don't care where you're practicing, I'm happy to answer. And then feel free to grab all my handouts or some of my handouts for patients. You can take my name off, put your name on, and there's some good things in there for you. So if you do see kids in your practice, please look through there and you're welcome to take whatever you want, please. We go to the next slide. Okay, so why am I here today? I'm here today not as a paid speaker, not as a paid KOL. I truly am grateful for Christine and how she has given some amazing tools to dentists, not only here locally, but all over the US. And I credit Christine for saving my bacon and her team, who's wonderful, for saving my second practice. Honestly, if it wasn't for Christine and her team in Swiss Monkey, I I don't know what I would have done post-COVID. And so I want to when Christine asked me to speak, I'd like to share my story because it's quintessential that we keep our businesses going, right? Unfortunately, everybody's work when you were sick, you don't feel well, you know, hurt your knee and you still got to show up to work, right? But if you work at Intel, you work at, a different company, corporate place, you can take a week or two off. It's not a big deal. We can't do that as business owners or it becomes much more difficult. So the story I want to share with you is what happened to me then and then transition to today and why I learned early on why the remote model can be so powerful for us. And I never would have thought at that time that I would even be talking about a remote model for employees. I just thought it was because I was about to, have to close my second office. But it really carries over in today. And Christine is one of the most intelligent, hardworking people I know. And she really is always focused. I'm going to embarrass you, but she's always focused not on her bottom line, but helping dentistry. I've never heard her once say, oh, I'm going to do this to make money for my business. Never once in the entire time I've known her. It's always been, what can I do to help serve my dental community? And, her husband's a GP. So I appreciate that. So anytime she asks me, I hop on. So COVID happened, right? And we all got that email, that phone call of we're going to be closed down for 2 weeks, right? And I thought, oh, this is horrible. 2 weeks, what am I going to do? I mean, I work a lot. I enjoy dentistry. I love dentistry. I don't take a lot of time off. And I thought 2 weeks and I was in trouble, right? What are we going to do for 2 weeks? And then it turned out to be a lot more than 2 weeks. And I don't think any of us could even imagine that we would be shut down for 3+ months. And so at the time, I had two practices. I had my main office here in Livermore, and then I had the second practice that my father also started in Tracy. And all of who are on here tonight really know that although Livermore and Tracy are back-to-back cities, they are not close, right? With traffic, you're talking like a good hour. And at that time, I really wanted to do this whole growth thing. And I thought having multiple offices and locations and all this stuff was going to be a great idea. Turned out, at least for the way I practice, it was not such a good idea. And when things were good, they were good, but I was just far away and it was associate driven. And every time I get a phone call, I was thinking, oh, geez, what's happening now, right? And so I kept the practice, kept it going, and I moved in with an oral surgeon and an orthodontist friend of mine, and they were only there part time, and I was there part time. And it was really run by, I had good staff, very good staff that a lot of them were with my father, and front and back. And then COVID hit, and it got to the point where the government was paying people really to stay at home, and nobody really wanted to work. They were getting paid, and people were scared, and I was scared. I mean, I remember those days we were Lysoling our groceries when they were delivered. I mean, it was a crazy time, right? I think most of us have blocked that out of my memory. But my failing as a practice owner is I was so invested in my main office that I let that second office. I didn't really follow up as much as I should. I had these team meetings with everybody, but it wasn't my main focus, right? Because I fed my family through my main practice, and if I made a little bit from the second office, great. But I did not put the time that I should have in that second practice while we were shut down. So what happens? We got back, and I went from a staff, I think, of 8 to a staff of 2. And it was really 1.5 because I had one person who was great up front, the office manager. I had, well, no, really 2. I had, one team member in back that had been with the office for a very long time, 2 extremely talented people that were very dedicated to the office. And then the doors opened, right? And if you remember, for all of us, we were trying to figure out how you were going to get 3 months of patients in for emergency care, for, that were in pain, that just wanted their cleanings. And everybody knew if you didn't see those patients right away, they were going to go somewhere else, right? And I think I had, I don't know, I had $15 left in the checking account or something, right? And I needed to get dollars in, right? We had claims, things that weren't sent in, and I had 2 people, and I was at the point where I remember talking to my CPA, and I said, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I may just need to close the doors. Like, I don't know what to do. And I had always, done well financially, and everything was great. And this was the first time I'm thinking I am really in trouble. So I was working with a consultant at the time, and they said, here, I'm gonna give you the phone number of someone named Christine, and her business is called Swiss Monkey. And I said, what is a Swiss Monkey? And still to this day, now it's like a running thing. I don't know where she got the name. I kind of don't want anyone to know. It's like this mystery now after all these years. But Christine just said, "What can I do to help you?" That was her whole sales line, right? What can I do to help your practice? And I thought, I distinctly remember this. I thought, what a refreshing way of asking what I need help with, because they could have come in and say, well, we want to say this and this and this. And I know this meeting today is not just about Swiss Monkey, and it's really about, remote working, but I'm just giving you my experience. So what happened? We found all these claims that were not sent, and I said, okay, I'm going to hire someone. And we were onboarding Swiss Monkey and bring someone in, and that person that I hired that was boots on the ground, she really misrepresented her skill set. She tried her best, and she came in for 3 weeks, and it was a disaster. We had claims to the wrong patient, the wrong parent, build out, I don't even know what. And half the things I think they sent it to, I don't even know where emails or claims went to. And not only, I mean, this was not only did I not have dollars coming in, I had page after page after page of posted insurance that was completely wrong. So it was this dual whammy, and I at that point I just remember I was in tears one day actually because I thought, what am I going to do? I've got 2 staff people the third person didn't really know what they're doing. I have the phone ringing off the hook, which normally you would love as a dentist of people trying to get in. I had, no ability. I was so busy in my main practice. I had no ability to run business systems in my office, to interview, to do any of those things. And Christine came in. She said, I'm going to give you my insurance specialist. And that person spent 3 weeks, and I don't know if she actually left her computer, going through every single claim, following up, and not only the backdated, the previous claims, but all the new claims that were coming in, and we were busy. And what the peace of mind that I got was every day I would get this little email, bing, sound would come up, and I'd open up my email, and it was from Swiss Monkey, and it was a report of everything that happened that day. Every phone call that was made, every recall call that was made, everything that was posted, every correction. And, even to this day, I use a lot of software like Practice by Numbers and things to get reports. But those automated reports I get now don't even hold a candle to this page of notes I was getting every single day. And so for me, it not only was things were getting done, but I knew they were getting done because those are two separate things, right? If, our teams don't communicate, they may be doing what they need to in front, but if you don't know, you don't know, and it's as stressful actually. And so not only did we get all our claims posted, they actually put in policies and procedures. There was things that we were billing incorrectly over the years, not huge stuff, but it added up, right? And they fixed inputted the correct. We had some things that were incorrect as far as the parents' insurance, and really within a month, I had all my insurances fixed, and my front desk was basically remote. I had one person that was nice and just kissing babies and greeting people and saying hi, and then Swiss Monkey. And then we were able to. They helped me at the time to find clinical staff, and people started coming back. But I had a fully automated and staffed front desk, and it gave me some time when I knew the front desk was taken care of to hire people in the back. And I wound up selling that practice 2 years later, but that entire time I kept Swiss Monkey on board. And every single day for my second practice, I would get those reports and I knew that everything was taken care of, right? And if I had to do this again, not that I'm gonna ever have a second practice, but if I was gonna have a second practice or a third practice or a mini DSO, I would do this again. I would call Christine and say, "Hey, I need a team and I want them remote, and I want that accountability," because what they were also able to do are I find it a little bit more difficult sometimes to get your staff to get on board to do exactly what you want if you're there every day because you're emotionally invested. But with just the phone skills that her team had, they were answering the phone as, "Hey, it's a great day at Pediatric Dentistry of Tracy. My name is Susan. How can I help you?" I couldn't get my own team to do that reliably. And they were monitoring. It's that whole, quote from Reagan, trust but verify, right? They were monitoring those calls. They were making sure that stuff was getting done. I had a direct supervisor that was not anybody I was paying for. I was just paying for the staff that I had. They're actually checking on those things for me. And then if we transition now going forward, is um, what I really learned at that point is the power of remote staffing, right? And there were some key things that I found that I would never know unless I went through this is it's not always conducive to have a lot of people at your front desk all working together because you get personalities, you get sometimes infighting. I'm sure all of us on have had that with our teams. I find sometimes they're not as productive when you have some downtime. And one of the things that we gave a webinar last night to another dental society, and I had thought about the time is things like if I'm going to do bonuses, we can't talk about that with, here in California, in most states, I can't tell my staff, well, the person that's in charge of doing all the recall calls, I can't just tell them I'm going to give them a bonus, but hey, don't tell anybody else, right? Although I don't want to bonus everybody for the job she's doing, I can't do that. Or what I also didn't realize at the time was, that was a smaller office I had then. Well, they can't make all those private calls with everybody sitting at the front desk, right? And now it's not a problem for me as a larger location here, but at the time or in my old office when we were using Swiss Monkey as well, um, we were still making some phone calls at the front desk asking for insurance and social security numbers, and you can't do that, right? So I learned the power of these things of remote staffing, right? And that transition to really what I see that remote staffing can do today. And maybe we'll go to the next slide and kind of move forward here to currently my feelings about remote staffing. So all of us that are on this webinar, you know that the cost of doing business in California is becoming unbearable, right? We see big businesses. I mean, Chevron, I worked at Chevron Corporate in high school, and I live in Danville and San Ramon. It's gone. They're gone, right? That's a big deal to move all those people out of California. And why do they do that? It is getting cost prohibitive to work in California. When they keep on adding, well, you need to give your staff extra paid time off, even though they already get a ton of time off, or the taxes on things go up, or our insurance reimbursement rates have not changed for 5 years, depending on the insurance company. Um, and then on top of it, um, for a while, I don't know what happened. For a while, it was good. I could get plenty of staff. I'd go on Deed and I'd get somebody great. But I would say over the last few years, I just don't know where everybody is, right? And what one of the things I also noticed is that now, most of my teams are actually team members are driving from very far away, right? They're from Stockton and some areas where the cost of living may be a little bit lower. I mean, it's not a lot lower, but it's a little bit lower. And for those of you in the South Bay, like you're in San Jose, I mean, I thought my cost of living was high. I mean, it's incredible in a lot of the areas where, in San Mateo County. So when the cost of living is high in the city where your office is, I find it's getting harder to get people because a lot of those team members, if they're making 25, $30 an hour, it sounds like a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money if you live in San Jose or, right in these expensive areas. So um, it's this like a triple thing that's happened, right? The cost of living overhead's gone up, insurance margins have decreased, and I know a lot of us where they're making their income's going down over the years because of this, right? Our production may be going up, but that really doesn't matter if you don't have enough staff to actually see all these people, right? And if your overhead keeps on going up and you have to give raises and raises and raises, just because it's untenable to have a business in California, right? So why remote staffing? And at the time when all this happened in COVID, I wish I could have go back in history and realized it was actually a good thing because I learned some very important lessons. And here's what I see the advantages of remote staffing is the model that I'll give example of Christine's business with Monkey is that you open up your talent pool to not just the one or two cities around you. You open it up to the entire United States and outside of the US if that's something that you want. And on her platform, they already have people that are ready to roll that can hop on right away, or you can put in what you want and then look and try to find that person. But they have immediate staffing available. And now your talent pool is the entire United States, right? I'm not Google. Google can put an ad in and get people from Tennessee to move to California, no problem, right? I can't do that in the Bay Area to work at a dental office. So immediately with remote staffing, I open up my pool to the entire United States. And I could find that person who's great that's in Tennessee. And if that person in Tennessee, I can tell you their salary requirements are going to be a whole lot less than somebody that lives in Danville or San Jose, right? The other thing that I've been going through this big review of overhead in my office, and I just calculated this out, and I would encourage everyone to do so, is I wanted to know exactly what my average per hour expense was to have an employee. So let's say they're making $30 an hour. Well, between taxes, employee taxes, 401k, PTO, the birthday gift that we give them, their bonus, all of those things, it was $4.50 to $5.50 an hour on top of what I'm normally paying. And that's almost impossible to keep your overhead down to do that. And really, my point of coming on here today was just to open up people's minds to this idea of remote staffing. And so, kind of in summary, is if you open things up and do it the right way, and Christine's going to talk about that, but if you open up your workforce selection to the entire United States, you can pick the best people around and you can find people for less and you can decrease the number of employees that you have. So the way that, specifically Christine's business works is they're all 1099 and I want to get everybody off my payroll. I want everyone to be the same as a plumber. I just pay the hourly and that's it. So I'll turn things over to Christine. I may pipe in here or there, but I just want to, thank her for what she's done and she took a lot of time here to kind of just talk about remote staffing in general, and I really want everyone to kind of consider thinking about this for your practices because it can help. And I'll turn things over to Christine when you're. I think I muted you accidentally. I'm sorry.
All
There
right.
you go.
There
Sorry about
it
that.
is. Thank you. And thanks for sharing your story. Just it's a little bit throwback to go back to the COVID days, but you've had that crazy experience that unfortunately, I mean, it's to come back with no team members and to come back from that, it's what a feat to actually, get that practice back and going and actually selling it. So congratulations on that.
Thank
Um,
you.
and so what Josh had mentioned, you could see that he had his on-site team and the off-site team. And in his case, he really had a predominant, at least for that second location, his off-site team was a lot stronger than the on-site team, right? In terms of like the quantity and the value they're providing. Now, some of you on this call, you might not need that. You might just need some support with just some phones or maybe following up with aging. But the idea with this model is that it's something that can flex, right? Because as we know, people leave. I saw a stat that there was a 67% turnover in healthcare front office. And how do you run a business like that when you're like constantly turning people over? I mean, that just it's hard to bring them to seat your horses and to invest in that team when you're like, will you be here in 6 months and in a year? And the idea of this model is like, hey, guess what? When people leave, that you have the ability to be able to tap into resources that really were reserved for larger enterprise multi-site locations, right? This used to be for big DSOs, for locations with 5, 10, 15 people, where they're like, hey, like, let's get someone from, a different location and have them come in. Now, private practice has the same kind of artillery that you have that was really reserved for larger enterprise. So I'm really excited about this and the ability to for you to flex as needed. And I am seeing new doctors come out of dental school and some of the consultants that we work with, they're actually building a completely front desk-less model where there is like one desk with someone just greeting the patient, asking them if they want tea, showing them around, and everything is done offsite. I'm talking about treatment planning, case presentation, the payments, everything is done offsite. And really, just the checking in, checking out, and patients leaving that's the piece that they'll keep on site. So you can take this model and go very aggressive. I would say the majority of my doctors will say somewhere in the middle, but I am seeing certainly if you need to or have to do that, you could certainly take that off because if it's not patient facing, it can be done offsite. It doesn't mean that it should. And I'll tell you, we had one practice where the doctor came in after vacation on Monday morning, 5 letters of resignation on their desk. And on Wednesday, they were leaving. So in those kinds of scenarios, a remote model might be something you have to do just because the ability to get to talent is so much faster. And Josh mentioned, I mean, what we find at least on our platform is when you post a position and we're looking for someone within 24 hours, you get 15 to 20 people. The speed to great talent is very fast. Whereas if you are really focused on, hey, I really want them on site, which I think everyone, of course, would love someone on site, consistent, all of that. You are really going to, you're tightening your talent pool, which makes it difficult and it takes much longer to be able to fill. So I like to have you see kind of the fluidity of the model so that you know that you can kind of ebb and flow as you need to. Okay, let me move back to the next slide here. We talked a little bit about traditional hire versus 10-9. I want to go through these a little bit, especially as in California here. There's a ton of hoops, and there's certainly a burden to having an employee. And my sense is you want to have employees, right? You don't want to be a widget company. You still want to provide that 5-star Ritz-Carlton experience. I don't foresee the Four Seasons ever getting rid of all of the humans inside of their office and having a kiosk. I think once you get to that level, it becomes very transactional. And I think most premium high practice dentists don't want to have that level of kind of low touch in their patient base. But I think the idea here is that you want to take the people that you have in your office, you want to pay them a lot, and you want them to do things that are really revenue generating, that providing that really high level patient experience. And anything that isn't like that, you can pull off site, like billing, insurance, aging, where it should be done, but does it have to be done inside of the office? And the answer is it doesn't, right? And again, larger enterprise clients, they've moved those overseas. They're saying, hey, I can have someone do that in another part of the country for 18, $20 an hour, or overseas for like $10 an hour. So the game that you're kind of playing is a little bit of Tetris, saying, hey, how do we move the distribution of tasks around so that higher value things can be done by the team members on site, give them the incentive to be able to like offload some of those pieces to cheaper labor and have them benefit in whatever that cost differential is for you. So certainly when you look at that 1099 model, you have a little bit more flexibility to do that. And with a 1099, it doesn't have to be full time, right? There's so many things in the front office that don't need a full time person. Hygiene follow up, insurance aging, following up with your unscheduled treatment by someone who actually knows how to, present high value cases. You're not going to see someone leave their full time job to do a 10-hour job with you. But when you open up to this idea of kind of this contractor 1099 remote model, you now have access to really great talent where they're really good at, like I just hired one that's all she does is case acceptance and she loves it. That's what she loves to do. And she's working with my office just 10 hours a week and she is just killing it. And I can get her. And for 10 hours a week, I don't need her full time. I don't have that many patients right now to follow up with. But isn't that wonderful that now I can tap into this great resource? She can do what she loves to do across multiple offices. And now I have access to that. And she's not in California and I'm paying her $20 an hour. And that's fully loaded, right? So in California, that may be $24 an hour or something like that. And in the Bay Area, who knows what that's going to be like. Also, we talked about the salary range. Usually with us, we see doctors posting between $15 to $30 and people bid on the position. I would say in California, your average front desk person is now going to be making anywhere between $27 to $35 an hour, maybe more if you're paying for office managers. Some of them are really, are really demanding a lot, which I think that that's great. They should. Eh, Now that you open up to remote work, you can actually have access to a much broader range. So again, you can get access to probably equal, if not better talent, or 70 to 80% of what you would traditionally get in California. And some of my practices are going overseas for insurance verification, right? If it's simply like, hey, I want to just have breakdowns, you don't necessarily, you can get someone for 10, $15 an hour, and that's just fine, right? So I think it's also being able to tap into kind of what that wage differential looks like. Um,
Christine, you made a
yeah,
good point. You're talking about Ritz-Carlton experience, but if I call the Ritz-Carlton to make a reservation, they're not the people on site.
that's right.
It's right. They may be, they're even maybe not in the US. Now they're still well trained, but the touch point people are at the hotel, right? But
That's
all
right.
these other people leading up to that, they're not there. And I still had a
Yeah,
great experience.
yeah, and when you kind of zoom out of the patient experience, 95% of the time that you are talking to your patients, it's not even in the office, right? Your email communications, your text communications, your case presentation. I mean, how great would it be for that patient to be able to get a case presentation in the comfort of their own home? They maybe set up a link to you have a calendar link to your treatment coordinator that's based in whatever Florida, who's fabulous. That patient, sets up a 30-minute call. They don't have to leave their office. You don't have to set up a space in your table in your office, and then your offsite professional has all of the charts and files ready to go. I mean, I think if we can think about how we are really presenting treatment, there's a ton of things that I think we can do to really maximize this idea of kind of the remote professional. So they don't. Most of the things actually don't already not even done on site. It's just that now we have to really coordinate the offsite and onsite team to be able to make sure that patient experience stays sacred.
Christine, you just gave me a great idea because one of the things I run into as a pediatric dentist is especially not for a filling here or there, but if a patient's referred to me for full mouth rehabilitation under general anesthesia, often it's just one parent, that's coming. But, the other parent who may be working or they're both working and just one parent can go, being able to open that up. And I do some consults, like at lunchtime or something, but that's not usually when both parents are there. So having that ability, you just gave me a great idea. So thanks.
A
Having
virtual
that
consult,
ability to do
yeah.
virtual consults, even if I'm not the one doing it, but having that remote person at, hiring somebody. Yep, good. You just gave me a great idea. It's
And
perfect.
there it is. There it
Because I
is.
take a lot of my lunches doing these consults, and often, it's trying to get one parent to be there where they both can be at home at the comfort of their home in pajamas, with the children. So thank you. I'm going to take that one from today.
Yeah. And I say, if you're going to do that, have your treatment coordinator put together a calendar link so that the patients just go ahead and select the time that works best for them. So everyone knows that during this 30-minute time, you're prepared. Because what typically happens, a patient calls the office, hey, I want to talk about your treatment plan. The treatment planner is doing 20 other things. They have to pull up the chart. They're not prepared to have those kind of
Right,
conversations. And
right.
so now everyone is set. Like, I know I'm going to prepare to talk to Christine about this. I have my patient financing order. Everything's set up, and
That's genius. Yep.
you look like you're ready to go. Pre-trained professionals is another big thing here. For remote work, my honest opinion is unless you have the training resources to hire someone that has 1 to 3 years of dental experience, I would opt for someone with more experience. Just because you really I don't want some. It's hard to train dentistry just on site, and even off site, it's a little more difficult. So typically look for someone that's already had experience in the dental field who really wants to work from home. That's really the majority of our professionals. We do have some that are more junior, only because we work with some large enterprise clients and they want the cheaper labor and they want to just kind of train them up. So I'd say if you're a smaller practice and you don't have the training resources, please opt that they know your PMS and that they are experienced, because you don't want to have that extra onboarding ramp time when that's really, we don't have the flexibility for most private practices for that extra training time. And it's easy to deploy. I mean, we in some cases we can fill positions in 24 hours if we really need to. It's challenging, but it happens, and we probably come across those kind of situations at least a few times a week. All right, so some of you are like, okay, great, this is fantastic. I want to use remote work. Let's go. I'm going to go on Facebook and or Indeed or ask my mother-in-law to like do this. And so, how did this usually happen? I think one of the things I'm really proud of is that we're professionalizing how we do remote work. Because what would happen is you're just going to give someone access to your remote, to your workstation. You're like, okay, go ahead and get going. And then you just, you use your cell phone messages, your cell phones to be able to text things back and forth. And what that does is it increases liability for you. And with everything happening with cybersecurity, you just want to make sure like you have everything in place in terms of agreements with anyone accessing your patient data. It's not meant to be scary. We already have kind of that all embedded within our platform. But if you're not going to use Swiss Monkey, you certainly want to just make sure that you have some of those things in place so that you're not opening yourself up to having someone at Starbucks call your hygiene patients. I think I even have a slide there, which is here. I'm going to move this slide really quick, which is so background checks, identity verifications, make sure they have access to just the information that they need. You don't want to give them admin access if all they're doing is hygiene recare, right? So you really want to start with the smallest kind of scope of work, and then you could always dial up unless you absolutely have to. I have some doctors like, I don't trust my team and there's no way, there's nowhere else but up. And then yes, you can dump it over. But typically I say, hey, start with something small, 5 to 10 hours a week. Because when you do this kind of change, it is not like an innovation in dentistry where you're exchanging glove brand A for glove brand B, super easy switch. You are changing personality. Your team is going to be nervous. Oh my gosh, you hired Susie Q. Does she even know dentistry? They have a lot of anxiety. People are nervous about it. So you want to set up the system for success. You want to imprint that individual. And it takes, just like every other person you're going to onboard, even though they know dentistry, one dental practice is very different than the other. Some of my dental practices are, they have no more than 2 new patients a day. Others are like, hey, just dump them in. So there's still a time where you want to make sure that you are sharing the information that's unique to your practice. So you set up that remote professional for success. The last thing you want is just like, okay, I'm hiring Josh. He's got 10 years of experience. Just go. Um, you can open it up like that. The challenge there is you're gonna leave a lot of room for just kind of assumptions. And as long as you're okay with that, then you can kind of play with that kind of field. But typically, what I like to have my practices do is set these clear expectations. And let me make sure I go back, is defining these goals and gaps, which is when you hire someone, you really want to make sure like how are you going to measure success? What gaps are they going to be filling out? Who are they reporting to? How are you going to be measuring whether or not they're successful? Just the clearer that you can be there, the better. You want to have some good systems in place ideally before. And even if you don't, I'll tell you, when you have someone that's touching your patient base that isn't in the office, it is going to highlight every single small thing that you haven't done. So if you don't block schedule, right, and someone's answering your phones and then there's an emergency patient, and you don't have a block in there, that remote professional is going to need to be able to contact your on-site team saying, hey, Christine called, there's an emergency patient, where do we put them in? So you're certainly going to want to tighten up all the systems, and this kind of process will force you to do that. And it's going to force everyone to make sure all of the information about your practice and your patients is inside of your PMS. Personally, I love that, because what used to happen when we had our practice and it was like one person in the front, is that everything was reliant on that one person. It was, and 30% of the information would be in this PMS and the rest of it would be in our head. And what would end up happening is if she was ever sick, I would not know anything. Like, okay,
Sure.
what was the treatment plan? What arrangement? And now all of that information goes through that with that individual. And you cannot run a business when all that intellectual property is moving from team member to team member. You need to memorialize it somewhere. So it needs to be in the PMS. That is your source of truth, is what we call it. And it just allows you as a practice owner that, like, look, whether it's someone on site or off site, everything is there, right? And really that is a good, I really love that piece about the model, in that the sense that, like, it's creating a better system and stronger system for you, especially as people do move in and out. You want to build the infrastructure. I mentioned that just really briefly before. Not scary, but you just want you obviously need to be digital. You need to have a dedicated workstation. You can't have 2 or 3 people on there, because they need to be using that time during the specific hours that you have them. And you want to make sure everything is HIPAA aligned, right? You're not sending patient data where it's not supposed to be. I personally like an all team thread. I don't like emails, because what ends up happening is that this team member sent an email to that team member, and then when someone's gone, I don't know what they say. So I just want one thread. Everyone is on it. There's no reason up for us to have side conversations. I don't use cell phones. I just like we have a one thread. Everyone's on it, and we can just talk to about patients on that thread. And again, all of the agreements should be signed before they get in, before they actually start to access the patient data, that they took HIPAA, et cetera. Not a big deal, but you just want to make sure that you have all of that infrastructure in place to do this right. Actually, I think connecting to talent is probably one of the simplest things. You have the supply demand is really unique with remote, because you had all of this, like, this is what we call Gen Z, Gen Z, whatever that next generation is, 1981 and younger. They all want to work from home, right? And so you've got this, especially after COVID. I mean, if you were to ask your front office, I'm sure they'd want to work from home. And so they want to be able to work from anywhere, make what they want to make. They want to have multiple different positions. And if they don't get what they want, they typically leave. And so you've got this next generation of people that are like, hey, I really want to work from home and have this kind of new work-life balance. And it's really good for dentists and employers, because now it's like, for every job that you have, you've got 20 to 80 people that are fighting for this position. So for us on Swiss Monkey, people bid for your position, which not only creates wage compression, but it also increases the talent pool in terms of the quality of the kind of candidates you're getting. And they're 1099s. And for 1099s, they've had to, put together a business checking account. They had to do all the business. It's a different type of mentality of someone that really wants to perform for their client, versus an employee, which is not, they typically show up and they kind of do their job, right? So typically between a business owner and employee, the mindset is different. So you're going to be able to feel that usually when you're working with a 1099 employee, a contractor. And here's what, if something doesn't work out, things change, your needs change, their needs change, you can, I call it sunset the position, and you can hire someone else, because again, there's no need for you to lower your standards when there's just so many people out there. And I know in California, at least for me, sometimes it's like you settle for that average person or maybe below average, because you're like, even though they're not great at what they do, they're not bad, and they're fogging up a mirror, so they're good enough, right? Like, they're good enough to be able to, like, treat somebody and to take care of my patients, but they're not great. And how are you going to have an excellent practice? How are you going to be able to realize what you can have when you have a bunch of B and C players? It's super difficult. And so when you look at the talent pool and the ability to really access that great talent, I think my dentists are like, oh, okay, great. Now I feel like I can invest. Like, you've got someone who actually loves to talk to patients. Someone loves to do billing, because those personalities are different. And I know for some offices, you've got your biller who's also the office manager, who's also the treatment planner. And they're just like, they're really good at one aspect of the job, but they're not really great at the other. And when you have now the access to be able to select really great professionals, you can now really, you can select people that are good for that specific function.
Christine, I have a question for you. I literally just thought of this. So, this week I talked to one of my friends who's in the Bay Area, and he's Korean. He's got pretty much, probably, I think he said about 75% of his pack practice, or is Korean speaking. Do you have the ability? So let's say he wanted to onboard, he needed someone remote. Do you have the ability to find people in your
Bilingual?
network that are
Oh,
bilingual?
absolutely. I mean, I
That would
teach
be
a
amazing.
practice
Yeah,
in,
I literally just thought of that. But Bay Area, I mean, most of our practices probably have 10 to 12 languages going on, at once.
yeah,
And
absolutely. We just had a
what a big deal. Yeah, that's a big deal. That's a big
I just
deal.
had a practice in San Jose, primarily Vietnamese speaking. So
Right.
I needed some of those Vietnamese. In Hawaii, a lot of Tagalog Filipinos,
Right.
and then in Florida, more a lot of Spanish speakers. So,
Huh. Yeah,
and
I
then
mean that I never even thought about, but that's a big deal, right? If you need, because I know, you call some, like I call my dermatologist and they have a language line, you can pick either English or, a second language, and they must have somebody remote that does that.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's a good one, especially in California.
Oh,
We have a lot of
yeah, that's great.
yeah. Um, All right, so just a couple of use cases. I'm going to try to speed through this because I want to leave any room for questions. Josh had the ability to pressure test all of these different scenarios. But
Yes,
again,
thank
the
you.
staff, yeah, thank you for your service for the
You're
today.
welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, staffing crisis. Hey, they didn't show up because they didn't feel like it anymore. So a lot of, I actually get a lot of these, and I just had one doctor just the other day. He bought this practice. He was so excited. All he had to do was bring his assistant. He took before he was going to start. He took a week off to Hawaii. He came back. The dentist that he bought was going to stay on for a while to help transition. He died unexpectedly. And then the rest of the team was so distraught, obviously, they didn't want to come back. So he comes back to this brand new office that he bought with his one assistant, and the entire team is
Can't
gone.
even imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, and so so now he's like 2 weeks behind. He just about to practice in Hawaii. He's like, hey, can I get someone? And he called me Monday. I think we filled it today. I think we filled it yesterday, actually. But so we get, for better for worse, we get a bunch of these kind of staffing crises. But not all of it is like that. We do have some that are focused in on the growth phase where it's like at the end of the year, I'll give you my favorite example of what I did is that I looked at it was just from October to end of January where I wanted someone that was specifically focused on unscheduled treatment, remaining benefits, and patients that were approved for financing because they're already approved for financing. They have unscheduled treatment and the remaining benefits are going to expire at the end of the year. My team just doesn't have time to call them. So we were just like trying to get them, on the schedule because if we didn't call them, we all knew they were going to call December 24th to try to get everything put in.
Exactly.
It was like, we're close, we're done. So there are certainly things where you're like, hey, you can have kind of these SWAT teams that are just focused on increasing production. Because we talked a lot about, hey, how do we constrain costs? But it's not always about constraining costs. Your overhead might go up, but if your top line goes up and your margins go up, that's really what we're looking at, right? So if you can find ways to increase your actually top line, that's fantastic. We have some offices that are like, for whatever reason, I had this was a few years ago. I practiced with $500,000 of AR. They just got there, and after 2 months of two full-time people, they got that down to a manageable piece, and then they sunsetted that engagement. But it's a great way to kind of say, hey, these are kind of project-based type of engagements. I don't need to hire someone. No one needs to leave their full-time job. I just need this for a certain amount of time. And this is a great way to kind of think about remote model as a tool for you. And then life happens. Everyone gets pregnant at the same time. Everyone gets pregnant at the same time. You're like, I'm
Right.
excited for all of you. There's medical leave as well, or someone's taking an extended vacation. And the idea is the show must go on, right? It's like this is fantastic. You really want to be a good employer. You want to celebrate everything that's happening with their life, but you also have a business to run, and you want to find a system that has some redundancy and to give you that flow without also, making people feel bad about what they have to do in terms of like managing their life.
I know one example where people get in trouble is if they have their main person that's posting insurance is on vacation for a week and they tell everybody, well, just deposit the checks because we need to just get the money in the account. And then all your checks and balances are off, right? Because you're not putting in the software, and then your patient portions get pushed out a week, and that can be a big deal, right?
Absolutely. We talked a little about creating visibility and accountability. So, one of the big questions my doctors have, how do I know what they're doing, right? Did they just clock in and they're going to clock in and go to Starbucks and clock back out? We learned this, we've been in business for over 10 years now. We leaned into this idea like it is, in our opinion, it's a privilege to work from home. And it is really up to the professional to to showcase what they did. So our system here is really about creating accountability. And one of the things that we put in there is when a professional on the platform clocks in, we start to take monitors of the screenshots, keyboard strokes, as well as at the end of the shift, we have this, they submit a productivity report. Here's just one example of something that it did, which is like, how many calls did you make? How many outreaches did you do? How many treatments did you schedule? Just all of the major KPIs of that role. So, depending on what they're doing, it is a way to one, cover their butt to make sure that they're doing what they need to do, but it also gives them an ability to have conversations that if they want to have an increase in their rate, rather than saying,
Absolutely.
"Hey, Dr. Josh, I'd like to go from 25 to 35 bucks an hour." And typically, what is the conversation like? Well, you're so nice and you've been here and you've been so great and
Yeah,
so committed to it. Sure, let's go ahead and do that. You don't even know if you can afford it and you don't know
correct.
whether or not they're actually doing it. So now
Or
it's
am
like,
I underpaying them,
yeah,
right? I mean,
exactly.
it could be because I don't want if that person is that good and I've got these KPIs and metrics and they're closing, in one day they're closing $10,000 worth of business, I better pay them more. If not, I'm going to lose them.
That's exact, and it's really fascinating to see because you could also say, hey, I hired you on Saturday to answer calls, but there's only two calls that happen. So
Right.
you can either decrease that, close that engagement, or have them do other things. So it just allows you to have data-driven conversations versus the emotional piece, which is typically what we're used to. So I like the KPI aspect of this because it's for everyone's benefit. The last thing I want is you adding another expense line and all you're doing is making less money. What's the point, right? Like, why are we doing this? All right. So your job is to make sure everything gets done, not to do everything. We talked a lot about how to get work done. I know a lot of your office managers not really managing anything. They're really trying to just get things that have to get done and not really trying to optimize for your practice. But this is certainly a model that I hope you're all interested in and open to having a conversation about. Um, here's some information. Just if you want to schedule a call, that's a QR code for a 30-minute call. Also on our website, but here's also a QR code. I put in all the documents around KPIs, best practices, how to really run this model well. Even if you don't use SwiftMonkey, it's on our website. So there's a tab there called Dental, and there's a bunch of free material on there. Please go use it. I'm available to you at any time. That's my cell phone number. Please, text me with any questions that you might have. So I think that's it.
You did a good job.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah, Josh, Christine, thank you very much for presenting today. And we have a few minutes for questions. If you have them, please enter them in the chat. And just a reminder, we have recorded this as well. We'll be sharing it, emailing it, and we'll be sending out certificates next week.
Great. If one thing for all of you that are on the webinar today or you're listening to in the future, if you want a sobering number of what it costs to keep employees in California, please do that calculation. Figure out, add in your state and federal employer taxes and 401k, all those, extras, the PTO, all those things that you give your employees, and then divide that by an hour uh, by the total and then by their hour to see what it costs to keep someone employed in your own practice. And just as a reminder, my number was 450 to 550 an hour on top of that hourly wage.
Yeah.
We just got a lot of thank yous in the chat. Everybody's hustling back to see their
I know.
patient.
They're like, look, they're biting down their into their sandwich. So, all right, Jim, thank you, Josh.
Thank you. Yeah, please, as I said, please reach out to me. Again, I want to thank Christine and Swiss Monkey for everything they've done for me, and I want to thank Jim for really. I get to work with you. Anytime you ask me to speak, and I appreciate your follow up on things, and you always get great speakers in, and I appreciate how um, you are good about reminding and sending reminders and making sure everything's super organized for speakers like me to come in. So I always appreciate you, Jim. And
Our
anytime you need anything,
pleasure.
I'm happy to do it.
Absolutely.
All right. Is it back to work time?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap it up and let everyone return to work. But thank you again, everyone. We'll look forward to seeing you soon, and we'll look forward to having Christine and Josh again speaking soon as well.
Yep,
Thanks so
anytime.
much.
And anytime you need to speak on, other things, Jim, I'm always available for the Dental Society. So, all right, take care. Time to see
Thanks, everyone.
patients. I
Thanks.
get a
Thank
Bye.
four-minute
you.
break. Take care. Bye.